Thank you for the introduction, and I'm really happy to be here. So I will talk about visualize your test effort, kind of take on where Corina talked this morning. She was talking maybe on a high level, and I will see if I can, as mentioned here, have an example to show you. I use this one. So what will we do here today? I see that I will see if I move around a little bit here. There are some behind the pillars. I will introduce myself a little bit more, who I am, a little bit about my background, and then the story, which here I have titled "The Fight of the Titans." Kind of the solution or part of the solution. There's never a single solution. There's always multiple pieces, but the visualization part here, which is a bubble chart, and there will be a summary, and I hope there will be a lot of questions then later on. So we already had a slight presentation of myself. So I've been working. I listened to Kari just before, and it turned out that I'm as old in testing as ISTQB. I started in 2002. Worked in the automotive domain, mainly throughout my career with test automation, but I've never used Selenium. It's on my bucket list. At some point in my career, I have to do that. Also listening to Corina, UI and the user interface for me is the brake pedal position or the steering wheel angle and so on. So that is kind of what kind of interface I have working in the automotive. First decade I worked with trucks and buses, brake system, electronic suspension and so on. And the second decade now with personal vehicles, infotainment system, and lately autonomous vehicles and those kind of systems. As mentioned, I'm co-founder of QualityMinds and Test Scouts, two consultant companies locally in Gothenburg in Sweden, or Göteborg as it is in Swedish. Second time in Slovakia. I've actually been here working 6 or 7 years ago, testing, doing in-vehicle testings in the mountains northwest of Košice, and also some testing navigation systems in Bratislava. So, but this time I will do this instead. I'd like to know the audience a little bit. As I mentioned, I worked with embedded system in my entire career. So I know that there are a lot of that you come from a lot of different domains. But first, how many work kind of daily with the testing craft, execution, test design, and stuff like that? Hands up. Okay. From a domain point of view, how many are working web? A few. Oh, there's plenty actually. Okay. Mobile? Not so many. IT system, SAP and these dragons. There's a few. Okay. And then embedded. Oh, there's 1 or 2. Half arm in the back. Okay. How about Agile? How many of you see yourself as Agile in your testing? Okay, okay. Then I have a little bit better picture here of you in the audience. First, just some food for thoughts and get your brains going a little bit. I first got the Agile concept. I mean, it's also as old as ISTQB, more or less. But when I got in contact with it several years ago, I started thinking, since I work in a quite conservative business, it's not so open to the changes. I started to learn more and go to conferences, and they were always talking at Agile testing days, for instance. But they were always talking about being in the context of the development being Agile. But they were doing the testing as they've always done. It's just that the context has changed. Not that they changed the mindset from a testing point of view to be Agile in the testing activities. So just have that in your minds, the difference between being Agile as a tester and testing in an Agile context. I think have that with you in the coming slides. And the other one is testing status. I've been walking around in large, in the corridors of large companies, and when you work, as long as I have, you get to know people, and people, they become managers and so on, and you meet them, and then when they know me, they know what I stand for when it comes to quality, and they ask, "Hey Daniel, how's the testing going?" And I say, "Yeah, it's going good." But what does that actually mean? Does it mean that we have done all the activities, all the testing activities are completed, but the software is crap? Or does it mean that it's all green, but we haven't been able to do our testing because we have other problems? So there's a difference here when we talk about testing status. It's the progress of our activities and the health of the software. Also had that with you in the coming slides here. Now, the fight of the titans. So the story here then. I've been working both for car and truck manufacturers, but also for suppliers. And some years ago, I worked for a huge Japanese supplier, 100,000 plus employees. So that's represented by the samurai here then. And the customer was a Swedish car manufacturer. That's the Viking. And there's one thing they had in common, being really conservative. But that's more or less where the commonalities stays. Apart from that, there's totally separate culture, totally separate when it comes to hierarchy, ways of working, and so on. We were building, I then was a samurai working for the supplier. We were building an infotainment system. If you think of a laptop or an iPad or something, we were doing the hardware. We were doing all the firmwares, the platform software, doing all the applications running on the system as well. So a huge system, very complex, and going into the cars. Started to deliver, and each delivery then came with a test report, of course. Thousands of test cases, all green. That's the samurai way of delivering. It's all green, no issues, no problems. Delivery to the Viking, Team Vikings, sat down. In their mind, nothing is working. So hundreds of fault reports within a week, deliver back. And that's how the fight kind of, or the tango was going on for a while. And for each the release, kind of the tension got worse. So the Vikings were already on their toes when they got their delivery. They have more or less prepared fault reports. Just they knew that this software would be crap, while the samurais thought that, okay, it's all green, it's working as expected. So the management meetings then, Think of a conference room, one side full of samurais, full of armor, helmets and everything on, and on the other side you have the Vikings, similar equipment, and kind of battling, and no one wanted to step down. No one wanted to admit that their view of the quality was wrong. Of course, they had different angles on the software. The samurai thought that, okay, these are the requirements. We are fulfilling them. We can prove that one way or the other we are fulfilling them. While the other angle was, this is not working when it comes into context and so on. So, yeah, this kind of fighting, of course, slows down the progress in the project when on that high level management is fighting or don't want to kind of admit that they are wrong and drive things forward and so on. And of course, it leads to lack of trust. As I mentioned already before the software delivery, the customer were expecting that this will not work. Something had to be done. So since I had been working for some time on the customer side, I had some, you build up a network, and now I was on the supplier side. I started to make up a proposal, or I started to influence on both sides, because the way out, as I saw it, was that they both need to think that the solution is coming from them, from both sides. So what we did was that we set up three local test teams in Göteborg, then close to the customer, but for the supplier. So starting to have a more local presence, being at the customer site, participating in their testing, but also being more transparent with the actual testing that we did. This way, we could start getting a better understanding on what the problems are. So, for instance, I was more or less daily at the customer site, listening into what are their problems. Okay, they are talking very much about this issue here. So I call up a friend in my test team. Can you reproduce this? And then, yeah, I can reproduce it quickly. An email with log files to our samurai team, the Japanese teams, since we have the time difference. Then overnight, they didn't prepare a solution maybe, but could identify the problems, or the root cause. And in the morning, when we come to this conference room with the samurais and Vikings, they could already present a solution. So, or that, yeah, we have this under control. So these, not all 100 issues, of course, but those that they were really thinking was important, that we could catch while being present at the customer. So different activities like that. The three test teams that we ran locally were doing exploratory testing in a very structured session-based way. And the result from that we shared with the customer to be transparent. And that's where this visualization comes in, where we kind of put all the testing efforts in a central hub, centralized in the project. And what we did is this health map. This is not the actual. We were using Jira for all the test sessions, and we're using Jira for the visualization as well. Being this conservative, this companies, I'm not allowed to, even if I anonymize the information, I was not allowed to take the actual. So I just used a Python plot to show the concept here at least. So it's the bubbles represents different features. So high-level features. What we did is we have a breakdown of each feature into sub-features and sub-features into components. So if we click on any bubble, we will go to that level and see the health of that feature, and in that we can go next level to sub-features. Some features are really big, so we could have 4 or even 5 levels, and some are smaller, then maybe we will have 2 levels. So that. I will go into kind of each part here in the health map as well. First, the y-axis, it's the coverage. So what we used then, we had the intention to use it for requirement verification in the end. You know, when you work with safety critical systems, the testing that you do, you need to be very formal, because it's in the end you use it as evidence, not only kind of for finding issues but in the end you use it for evidence for the safety of the system and so on. So the idea was the intention was to go for actual requirement verification, but that was a little bit too much for the samurais. So we stayed with only looking at the component level, the coverage. So if we spent certain amount of sessions in a component, then that will be seen as covered, and we will move the bubble on the y-axis. Then we have the size of the bubbles. That's the test effort that we have done. If we have spent a lot of time in an area, we will have a larger bubble, and smaller time than a smaller bubble, of course. And that's based on hours, not on the number. So if we have a longer session, that will, of course, increase this bubble size as well. The color is the health of that area. So we had an algorithm, or how you say it, that we look at the number of issue fault reports and the severity of them, kind of add that together, and then we divide it with the time that we have spent in the area, and then we had to use like a weight factor to get the color scale to really play in the way that we wanted. But this means that if we spent 1 hour and have one severe issue, that will be red. But if we spent 100 hours and have one severe issue, it will be more greenish. So it's a relation then between time spent and severity of issues found. And this is, I think, as I see it, the best part is the x-axis, where we were having the priority. So high priority is further to the right. And on the top level, as I said, on the features, we had a project team. So on a weekly basis, saying that this is the priority between the features in relation to each other. And then on the next level, on a feature divided in sub-features, it's the feature team that on a daily basis could say that this part of our feature is more important, this is less important at the moment. And the testers could then, on a daily basis, look at the chart and see, okay, where are the different features positioned? Where should I spend my time the most? And coming back to the health map then. If we look at this, I don't know if everyone sees now, but if we look at this bubble up to the left, that means it's an area where we spent a lot of time. It has low priority. We have good coverage, and it has good health. It's green. So if I come in the morning and look at this, okay, this is not an area where I should do my testing. If we look at the other end, to the right lower corner, there's a small reddish bubble. There's a high priority area. We have not spent much effort in that area, but it's not in that good health. So this is potentially where I should spend my time, so to say. With this access to this health map, we gave that to the customer so they could live go in and look. What are they doing? Where are they spending the time? What's the health? What they do? They were not allowed to see the actual fault reports behind. That's also too much for the samurais. But they could see that, okay, they are actually working. And they could see that, okay, they're doing the part. They could come back with, shouldn't you do more here? Or shouldn't you prioritize this? And that's fair. But this way, we started to get the trust back. We started to get focus on the right areas, a better understanding on where are we? Do we have the same view on the actual status? And so everyone was looking at the test team, in the local test team. What are they doing? What are they saying? How are they giving us the information? Of course, the samurais saw us as Vikings, and the Vikings saw us as samurais. So, but we are testers. We provide information, and it's up to them to use the information. But the important part here is that everyone had the same information, and that, I think, was the key here. So just to summarize, don't go home and make a bubble chart. That is not my message here. Look into what's the problem in your organization. How can I, as a tester, do something about it? How can I visualize the effort or the health or the status of our testing? To the customer, I mean, the customer can be external, as it was in our case, but the customer can be internal as well. See how you can change your way of sharing information, giving information to different stakeholders, to increase the value in the effort that you actually do on a day-to-day basis. Because I think you know that you are valuable, but it's a way of sharing that to everyone else. If you're interested in bubble charts, if you're interested in visualizations and so on, I can recommend the book Factfulness by the late Dr. Hans Rosling. It's really good. His focus is not on testing and software quality, but on the way we look at the world and the progress of the world. But there are a lot of things for a tester's toolbox to take with you in this book, on visualization, on bias, and stuff like that. So it's and I have nothing to do with the book, so it's just good reading. Now, questions. I think I got an indication that it was time for questions, and we'll see if I have any answers.
Let me help you here.
Do it.
Pardon? Yeah, because we have questions here and we have questions in the Slido. So let's start in the room here, and we will pass the microphone to the lady on the left. Yeah, behind the pillar. Yeah. Usually we have behind the scenes. Now we have the behind.
I will go here so I see you.
Thank you. Yeah, I was like looking at you, having a sneak peek. Thank you for the presentation. I have a question. Maybe I didn't get it right, but I wanted to put it on Slido, but I couldn't fit myself into the character limit. Yeah. So on the slide with the heat map, as I understood, the more time you spend on the feature, let's say, or sub-feature or whatever, the bigger coverage you have. Why so?
Not necessarily. The bigger the bubble will be.
Yeah, so it can be like
But
a big red bubble, and it means that you spent a lot of time but didn't, how to say, complete your testing mission. Is it correct?
So the coverage is the position on the y-axis. So if you spend a lot of time, but do it on a limited part of the feature, it will stay quite low. It will be big because you spend a lot of time, but it will not increase the coverage necessarily. So the coverage is kind of how spread your testing is within the area, and that will change the position on the y-axis. So if you have a greater coverage, it will go north, so to say. So you can have a small bubble that have 100% coverage potentially.
Then one more question, because I'm probably stupid today and didn't have enough coffee. There is like X and Y axis. You have priority and the coverage.
Yeah.
And also you have the color coding. Is it the same what is the coverage, or?
No. So the color is, if you look at the fault reports that has been written connected to that area. So that's kind of how much problems do you have. Take the severity of those in and divide it with the time you have spent. Then you get the color scale.
So
if you don't have any fault reports at all connected, it will be green.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's move to the slide. First question: how detailed did you get into health section?
What do we mean by detailed here? I mean, if we talk about levels, it was a little bit depending on the feature and how big the feature was. So we got quite detailed, break it down, different levels, features to sub-features into component, and if needed, even further down. So I think we had at the most 6 levels. And for smaller features, it was, I think, normally two levels. So,
if there is another accompanying question to this, or if there is another brave hand to be raised and question to be asked from this, okay, please.
All right, so I'm loving a map. So thanks for that presentation. And my question is regarding to the estimated time. I saw that the question on the slide also about the actual time and the estimated time. So I loving the clear map, the clear chart for the user. Yeah, very readable. Yeah, but I think this is I'm thinking loudly. We can include to the chart also a shape, not only a bubble, a circle. Yeah, and maybe this estimated time, because we have to estimate the feature, the user stories, whatever it is. Sorry. And maybe we can include the shape, triangle, square, and so on as a size of this feature, like T-shirts. Once again, so maybe make it more complicated for read, but maybe it's additional info, because if you come, for example, triangle is the huge side, XL, yeah. And if you've got the huge triangle, for example, right? So this is so you spend a lot of time for testing a huge feature. So that's okay, yeah? Yep. On the otherwise, would be not okay if you're spending a lot of time on a small feature, yeah? So this is additional info from my side. Thank you.
I love it. I mean, improvements. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to another question. How do you measure test coverage in session-based testing?
What we did was, as we had these layers, take the feature, break it into sub-features and so on. We looked at, so did we do a session, in each session we recorded what sub-features we were covering or testing. And then we could, from the data, see have we spent a certain amount of time in this session. That will be judged then as covered. And of course, the sessions where we had always had after each session we had a discussion on what have we been doing, what did you really do what was intended and so on, so that we could kind of ensure that we were doing the right things.
And the last question from Slido: what was the hardest part creating special team in customer perimeter?
Yeah, that's a good question. Everything was hard, but I think what I mentioned here at the end, that I mean, I saw it as a strength, having kind of friends or a network in both sides, and being able to talk to everyone. But the problem was that they were seeing me as a representative for the other. If I went to the customer, they saw me as a supplier. If I went to the supplier, where I was actually hired, they saw me as part of the customer, talking for the customer. So I think that was really hard. I thought I had a lot of friends, but they did not see me every time as a friend, thinking that I was coming with a message from the other side.
So thank you. I would ask for a big applause for Daniel.